shadows tell secrets that daylight never sees. When Sky Marshall steps onto the prestigious stage at Winston Academy, no one expects much from the quiet girl from public school. But beneath her unassuming exterior lies a gift that will silence a room and change everything. Before we dive into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from. The grand atrium of Winston Academy of Performing Arts gleamed like something from another world. Marble floors reflected crystal chandeliers, and carefully cultivated ivy crawled up columns that stretched toward a glass ceiling. Sky Marshall clutched her worn backpack straps tighter as she navigated the space, feeling as though even her footsteps were too loud. "You look lost." The voice came from behind her, warm and amused. Sky turned to find a lanky boy with kind eyes and a mop of curly hair. His blazer bore the Academy's crest, but his untucked shirt and loosened tie suggested a casual relationship with the school's infamous dress code. "That obvious, huh?" Sky managed a small smile. "I'm looking for the administrative office. Today's my first day." "Mid-semester transfer?" He extended his hand. "I'm Leo, resident orchestra geek and unofficial tour guide." "Sky," she shook his hand. "And yes, scholarship recipient. Still not entirely sure how I ended up here." Leo's eyebrows shot up. "The Margaret Chen Scholarship? That's basically impossible to get. You must be incredible." Sky felt heat creep into her cheeks. "Lucky, more like it." Before Leo could respond, the delicate chime of heels against marble announced another presence. A tall, elegantly dressed woman with a perfect blonde chignon approached, flanked by a group of students who carried themselves with practiced confidence. "Ah, you must be Skylar Marshall," the woman said, consulting a tablet. "I'm Professor Vivian Carter, Department Chair of Vocal Performance." "It's just Sky, actually," she corrected gently. Professor Carter's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, well, I understand you're joining us from—" She paused, as if the words tasted unpleasant. "Westlake Public." "How interesting." One of the students behind her, a girl with glossy dark hair and expensive-looking pearl earrings, smirked visibly. "The scholarship committee must have seen something in your application," Professor Carter continued. "Though I admit, their choices sometimes baffle me. Nevertheless, welcome to Winston. We maintain exceptionally high standards here. I do hope you can keep up." Leo shot Professor Carter a look of barely disguised annoyance before turning back to Sky. "I'll show you to the office and then maybe give you the real tour later." He emphasized the word real with a meaningful glance. "Thanks," Sky said quietly, grateful for the friendly face in this intimidating new world. As they walked away, she could hear the dark-haired girl's voice carry across the marble floor. "Did you see her shoes? I don't think I've ever seen anyone wear sneakers in this building before." "Ignore Audrey," Leo muttered. "Her father donated the East Wing, so she thinks she owns the place." The administrative office was a flurry of activity, and after receiving her schedule and a stack of forms, Sky found herself facing her first class at Winston, Advanced Vocal Theory, with none other than Professor Carter. She slipped into the classroom just as the bell rang, scanning for an empty seat. The only available space was in the front row, directly in Professor Carter's line of sight. Today, we'll be analyzing vocal techniques in contemporary classical crossover, Professor Carter announced, writing on the whiteboard. "Can anyone explain the difference between head voice and mixed voice techniques?" Several hands shot up, but Professor Carter's eyes landed on Sky. "Miss Marshall, since you've joined us on scholarship, perhaps you can demonstrate your knowledge." The room fell silent, 20 pairs of eyes fixed on Sky, who hadn't even had time to open her notebook. Head voice is produced when vocal folds are stretched thin, and vibration primarily occurs at the edges. Sky explained, her voice soft but steady. Mixed voice blends elements of both head and chest registers to create a unified sound across the vocal range. Professor Carter's eyebrows rose slightly. Textbook answer. But can you identify them when you hear them? She tapped her tablet, and a recording of a soprano filled the room. What technique is being used at the crescendo? Sky listened intently. She's using mixed voice with a forward placement, but there's tension in her soft palate that's limiting her resonance. The classroom remains silent, but now with a different quality. Surprise! Professor Carter's lips pressed into a thin line. Indeed, she said curtly, though I wasn't asking for quite such a detailed analysis. From the back of the room, Audrey's voice carried with deliberate volume. Anyone can memorize terminology. Doesn't mean they can actually sing. A few nervous laughs rippled through the classroom. Professor Carter smiled thinly. An excellent point, Audrey. Perhaps our new student would like to demonstrate? The week crawled by, each day presenting a new challenge. Sky kept her head down, focusing on academics while avoiding the spotlight. During practice room's rotation on Thursday, she found herself assigned to a cramped space with a slightly out-of-tune upright piano, hardly the gleaming grands that populated most of the school's studios. Facilities management must have made a mistake, remarked Audrey, passing by with her friends. But maybe it's more familiar territory for some. The group's laughter echoed down the hallway. Sky closed the door, shutting out their voices. She placed her sheet music on the stand, a complex arrangement she'd been working on for months, and began warming up with simple scales. Friday afternoon brought the weekly performance seminar, where students showcased works in progress for faculty critique. The auditorium buzzed with energy as Sky slipped into a seat in the back row. Joining us today, Leo appeared beside her, dropping into the adjacent chair. Just observing, Sky replied. Professor Carter said new students typically watch for a few weeks before performing. Leo frowned. That's not actually a rule. Before she could respond, Professor Carter took the stage, clipboard in hand. Welcome to our weekly showcase. We have several prepared performances, but first, her eyes scanned the room, stopping when they found Sky. I think it would be valuable for our new scholarship student to demonstrate her abilities. The room went quiet. Sky felt her heart hammering against her ribs. I wasn't prepared to perform today, she said, her voice barely carrying. Professor Carter's smile was glacial. Surely a student of your caliber can handle a simple demonstration? Perhaps the piece you were working on yesterday. Audrey mentioned hearing you practicing. From several rows ahead, Audrey turned, her expression a mixture of triumph and artificial sympathy. I didn't bring my music, Sky tried again. A true musician doesn't need sheet music for a piece they've been practicing, Professor Carter countered. The piano awaits, Miss Marshall. Leo gave Sky's arm a supportive squeeze as she stood. The walk to the stage felt endless, each step across the polished wooden floor amplified in the hushed room. 40 pairs of eyes followed her movement, curiosity and judgment mingling in their gazes. Sky settled onto the bench, fingers hovering above the keys. The grand piano was far superior to her keyboard at home, or even the upright in the practice room. She took a steadying breath and began to play the introduction to her arrangement. A collective murmur rippled through the audience. The piece was Debussy's Clair de Lune, but transformed through a complex arrangement that incorporated elements of jazz harmonization while preserving the original's delicate emotion. Professor Carter's smug expression faltered slightly. From the corner of her eye, Sky could see Audrey whispering frantically to the girl beside her. But Sky was no longer aware of them. The music had taken her, as it always did. Her fingers danced across the keys with the precision of someone who had practiced not for months, but for years. Thousands of hours hidden away in her bedroom after school, teaching herself on a second-hand keyboard because lessons were too expensive. She reached the climax of the piece, her left hand providing a rich counter-melody that complemented rather than competed with Debussy's original line. The auditorium was completely silent, except for the notes resonating from the piano. When the final chord faded, Sky remained still for a moment, eyes closed, suspended in that perfect space between the end of performance and return to reality. Then came the applause, hesitant at first, then growing louder. When she finally looked up, she saw Leo on his feet, leading what had become a standing ovation from most of the students. Most, but not all. Audrey remained seated, arms crossed. Professor Carter's expression had turned calculating. "That was technically proficient," Professor Carter said, her voice cutting through the applause. "Though I wonder if such creative liberties with a classical masterpiece show proper respect for the composer's intentions." The applause died awkwardly. Leo's hand shot up from the audience. Isn't reinterpretation a cornerstone of musical evolution? Didn't composers like Liszt regularly reinterpret others' works? "We're not discussing musical history, Mr. Chen," Professor Carter replied coldly. "We're discussing Miss Marshall's performance, which demonstrates technical ability but questionable artistic judgment." Sky gathered her belongings and slipped from the stage, cheeks burning. The remainder of the showcase passed in a blur of performances that now seemed lackluster after her display. "That was incredible," Leo whispered when she returned to her seat. "Don't let Carter get to you." "Thanks," Sky murmured, unable to meet his eyes. After class, she hurried toward the exit, desperate to escape the whispers and stares that followed her through the halls. A hand on her shoulder stopped her. "Miss Marshall." It was Professor Winters, the elderly composition instructor. "A moment, please." Sky braced herself for more criticism. "That arrangement," he said, eyes twinkling behind wire-rimmed glasses. "It's yours, isn't it?" She nodded hesitantly. "I've taught here 30 years, young lady. That was exceptional work. Have you considered entering the Hargrove competition? The deadline's next week." "The Hargrove?" Sky's eyes widened. The prestigious competition awarded a substantial scholarship and recording opportunity. "I'm not ready for something like that." "Nonsense. You're more than ready." He pressed a brochure into her hand. "Think about it." Monday morning brought a new development. The performance hall's bulletin board displayed the semester showcase lineup. And Sky's name appeared in the headlining slot with a piece she'd never agreed to perform. "Carter can't do that," Leo said when he found Sky staring at the notice. "She's setting you up." "For what? The showcase is a major event. Board members, donors, alumni, they all attend." Leo frowned. "And she's assigned you Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3. It's notoriously difficult." "I've never even played it before," Sky whispered, panic rising. "That's the point," came Audrey's voice from behind them. "Everyone knows scholarship students don't belong in the showcase. When you fail spectacularly, Carter will have grounds to recommend your scholarship be revoked." Leo turned, eyes slashing. "That's ridiculous." Audrey shrugged, examining her manicured nails. "The showcase is in 3 weeks. Better start practicing, if you can even read the music." As she sauntered away, Sky felt the floor shift beneath her. I can't learn Rachmaninoff in 3 weeks. No one could. Leo's expression hardened with determination. Then don't. Play your own composition instead. But the program will state what you actually play. It's your performance. Take control of it. The challenge was set, and with it came a decision. Retreat from Winston Academy defeated, or stand her ground and show them who she really was. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of late nights and early mornings. Sky practically lived in the practice rooms, refining her original composition. An ambitious piece that blended classical structures with contemporary influences, showcasing technical prowess while maintaining emotional depth. The night of the showcase arrived with an electric tension. The auditorium filled with elegantly dressed patrons, board members, and industry professionals. Backstage, performers paced nervously, running through last-minute preparations. "You're still going through with this?" Audrey appeared beside Sky, eyeing the sheet music that clearly wasn't Rachmaninoff. "I am," Sky replied simply. "Professor Carter will fail you." "Maybe, but I'd rather fail honestly than succeed as someone I'm not." Audrey's expression flickered with something unexpected. Respect, perhaps, before hardening again. "Your funeral." When Professor Carter spotted Sky's music during the pre-show check, her face contorted with barely controlled anger. "This is not the assigned piece, Miss Marshall." "No, it's not. It's my original composition." "This is completely unacceptable. The program clearly states..." "The program is printed. People will hear what I actually play." Sky met her gaze steadily. "Isn't that what matters? The music itself?" "This is insubordination." Professor Carter's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "The board chairman is attending tonight specifically to evaluate the scholarship program's success. Then I'll give him something worth evaluating." Professor Winters appeared at Sky's side. "Is there a problem, Vivian?" "Miss Marshall has decided to ignore the assigned repertoire." Professor Winters examined Sky's score, eyebrows rising. "Fascinating structure. Is this your work? May I?" The older professor scanned the pages with increasing interest. "Excellent counterpoint work here." He looked up at Professor Carter. "I'd say this demonstrates exceptional initiative, Vivian. Exactly the kind of innovation we claim to foster at Winston." Professor Carter's lips thinned to a nearly invisible line. "Fine, but the consequences are yours to bear, Miss Marshall." As she stalked away, Professor Winters winked at Sky. "Knock 'em dead, young lady." The showcase began with the usual proceedings. Polite applause for competent performances. Enthusiastic response for excellent ones. Leo's violin solo earned rapturous approval. Audrey's performance was technically flawless, but emotionally reserved. And then it was Sky's turn. Next, we have Skylar Marshall performing. Professor Carter paused, a slight tremor in her voice, an original composition. As Sky took the stage, a curious murmur spread through the audience. The grand piano waited, gleaming under the spotlight. The faces beyond the stage lights were mere shadows, but she could sense their skepticism. She settled onto the bench, adjusted it slightly, and placed her hands on the keys. The auditorium fell silent, expectant. Sky took a deep breath and began to play. The composition opened with a deceptively simple melody that evolved into cascading arpeggios, building tension through unexpected harmonic shifts. Her left hand maintained a complex rhythmic pattern, while her right executed technical passages that would challenge most conservatory graduates. The piece moved through emotional landscapes. Contemplative passages gave way to thunderous climaxes. Moments of sparse minimalism contrasted with lush harmonic clusters. But beyond the technical brilliance was something more rare. Genuine, emotional communication. The music told a story of struggle, resilience, and ultimately, triumph. As she played the final movement, Sky's entire being focused on the connection between fingers and keys, heart and sound. Time seemed to suspend. When the final chord resonated through the hall, she remained still, eyes closed, letting the sound dissipate naturally. For 3 heartbeats, silence reigned. Then the audience erupted. The sudden roar of applause startled Sky back to reality. Through the bright stage lights, she could see the audience on their feet. Not just a few enthusiasts, but the entire hall in a unanimous standing ovation. The thunderous response echoed through the auditorium, reverberating in her chest. Professor Winters was the first faculty member to stand, beaming with undisguised pride. Next to him, an elderly gentleman in an impeccable suit, the board chairman, she presumed, was nodding with obvious approval. Even some of Sky's fellow students had abandoned their backstage positions to watch from the wings, mouths agape. Only 2 figures remained seated: Professor Carter, her face a mask of conflicted emotions, and Audrey, whose expression had transformed from smug certainty to stunned disbelief. As Sky rose from the bench, her legs trembled. The adrenaline that had carried her through the performance was ebbing, leaving behind a curious lightness. She managed a small, gracious bow before exiting the stage on unsteady feet. In the wings, Leo waited, practically bouncing with excitement. "That was... I don't even have words," he whispered, eyes wide. "You just changed everything." Behind him, other students clustered, offering congratulations, asking questions about her composition technique, wondering where she'd studied before. I taught myself, mostly," Sky admitted, overwhelmed by the attention. "Impossible," someone murmured. The stage manager hurried over. "Ms. Marshall, the board chairman would like to speak with you after the showcase. And," he lowered his voice, "there's a representative from Juilliard asking about you." Sky's knees nearly buckled. Leo steadied her with a hand on her elbow. "Breathe," he whispered. "You earned this." She caught sight of Professor Carter engaged in an intense conversation with the board chairman, her gestures becoming increasingly agitated while he remained calm, occasionally glancing in Sky's direction. Audrey pushed through the crowd, stopping directly in front of Sky. The background chatter quieted as everyone watched, anticipating conflict. "That arrangement," Audrey said, her voice tight. "Did you really write it yourself?" Sky nodded. Audrey swallowed visibly. It was extraordinary. The words seemed physically painful for her to utter. Without waiting for a response, she turned and walked away. The 3 weeks following the showcase transformed Sky's experience at Winston Academy. Professor Winters became her mentor, securing her a private composition studio. The Hargrove competition judges unanimously awarded her first place after her submission left them speechless with admiration. Even Professor Carter grudgingly acknowledged Sky's talent, though she maintained that technical brilliance must be tempered with classical discipline. On a crisp autumn afternoon, Sky sat on a bench in the courtyard, sketching musical notations for a new piece. "There she is, Winston's newest prodigy," Leo called, dropping beside her. Sky smiled. "Still just me. The conservatory interviews went well?" "3 scholarship offers so far," she confirmed. "It doesn't feel real." "You changed something here," Leo observed. "People are actually auditioning with original compositions now. Even Audrey's working on one." Sky closed her notebook. "The funny thing is, I spent so long hiding my music because I thought it wasn't good enough. I nearly let other people's expectations define my limits. The greatest mistake we make is believing that what others see in us is all that exists," Leo said. Sky nodded, watching new students crossing the courtyard, wondering which of them carried hidden talents, waiting to be revealed. Sometimes, the most extraordinary gifts come in the most ordinary packages. A truth the world rediscovers with every generation brave enough to believe in themselves.